So let's talk about programming. Welcome back to Car Chat. My name is Gerald Rogers, and this is on the Workshopium. And we need to talk about programming and like the culture that is around it. Now, I know this is not really going to be a topic that you guys are going to be that interested in, but please hear me out. When I was a kid, I started playing with RPG Maker 2000. This was not the official release, mind you. That took years upon years to happen. This was done by a Russian man by the name of Don Miguel. And one of the most intuitive things about that entire system, I'm moving forward, I got shadows differing from my face. My windshield's a bit clouded because it's salted and freezing out here. One of the most democratic things about that entire program was the eventing system. In the eventing system, you had all the basics of programming in a single nutshell, okay? You could put dialogue up on the screen. You could offer choices. You could do conditional branches. You could technically call quote-unquote functions, which are like a specialized pre-made conditional branches that you put inside a menu inside the back end. And you were really, when you're a kid, that part doesn't really click to you, but it's how people did a lot of funny things like making custom menus and custom battle systems, was by storing it on the back end there. I wish it had a better name in that system. But it also had a feature that I've never seen in any other programming language, which were labels. And labels kind of changed the game. Because labels, you write a piece of code, and then when you want to call that code, you just type in the jump to label, and it would jump to that part of the code. And that was kind of something that I've always wished when I mess around with programming languages, which I don't really know how to program that well. I just know like basics for terminal and how to make like a text adventure, that kind of stuff, right? And so it got me thinking, though, the biggest issue I've always had with programming is that it's boring. Okay, it is mind-numbingly boring, and the language it uses is archaic. It doesn't make sense. You pull up, like, let's say you're using Python, okay? You're using Python, and you're like me, and you're like, I want to make a notepad program. Great. What do we need to do to make a notepad program? Well, we need a GUI. Okay? What program creates a GUI? I go online. They say use TK Tinker. I'm like, okay. So I load up TK Tinker, and I start going through the documentation and start slapping in features, and it is a mess to get to run. Eventually I had to chuck my entire code into an AI to get something halfway functional, and it looked like a program out of the early 90s by the end. Like, the GUI that was offered was not moddable. Don't get me wrong, there's like total freedom in there. But I'm not looking for total freedom. I'm looking for a template that will give me a modern Windows 10, Windows 11 wrapper to put it into a windowed thing, allow me to add a few buttons on the top, and then allow me to use the main part of the screen for my function, which is going to be let the user write text, let the user save text, and let them make a tab at the top. That was something I was trying to add, and I got it to work. But it was such a headache for me. And it really got me thinking about how people approach programming language in itself, and how it gatekeeps people out, because people do things in a certain way, and they do them in that certain way because they have always done them in that certain way, and reinventing the wheel will be damned. Does it make sense? So there are these things called SOLangs. You can look them up. A lot of fun YouTubes about them. They have funny programming languages that make no goddamn sense, like brainfuck and such, and you can try to rack your head around it. But I'm not really a coder. Not really. I tinker with it, I play with it, but I'm not really a programmer at the end of the day. Like I said, I have no issue with just chucking my broken code at AI and yelling, go to GitHub, find the correct things, and fix this. And it will. Oh, sometimes. It breaks a lot of stuff too. I don't advise anybody to use AI for coding. But it then occurred to me the real issue I'm having is just with the words. Okay? Because I was trying to do all this in Python. And the words and vocabulary that programming uses is not intuitive. It doesn't make sense to us. Even Python, which is meant to be more intuitive than other languages, it's a mess of these archaic symbols and archaic calls, and everything is done in a very particular fashion. And they claim everything is completely free. But let's be honest here, okay? How many tactical RPGs are there? How many visual novels are there? How many word processors are there really? How many of them have that many different functions? And when you start thinking about it, you start realizing that all the day-to-day software we actually use fits into like these very narrow categories. And then they might have one extra feature on top. Or like this one splash of thing on top. In which case, it's like, let's look at the tactical RPGs as a good example. Let's look at Fire Emblem. So to get my thoughts in order on that, there is Fire Emblem style old tactical RPGs, okay? Now we're talking about turn-based only. We're not going to into ogre battle here. But you essentially have the Fire Emblem format, you have the D&D format, you have the Tactics Ogre / Disgaea format, the Final Fantasy Tactics, all those that fall into that categorization, okay? And you have war games. And that's really it when you think about it. When you get down to the essence of tactical RPGs, you have only 4 formats. That's all. There's just 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so, because we already know all the base systems for this, I mean, if you want to expand the scope and say tactical war games, we can argue that there's also the Advanced Wars format, which works similar to the, what do you call it? It works very similar to Fire Emblem, but is different in very crucial ways. And a lot of other games just kind of jump off that. Like you have Wargroove, which is directly riffing on Advanced Wars. But still, at the end of the day, these are like more like feature tweaks than actual different systems. Then we can look at visual novels. Okay, you have visual novels which are ADV visual novels like Steins Gate, and then you have visual novels which are like novel style visual novels, which are like Tsukihime. Okay, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of platforms right now that exist that cater for these very specific edge cases. Like you can go to RenPy and you can type in I want to do this or I want to do that, and you're already set and you're ready to go, okay? But at the end of the day, those are not built into a base coding language. Those are specialized tools built upon another coding language in order to try to handle that. But they don't always have all the flexibility as if it was in the language itself. Do you see what I'm saying? But the issue I kept coming back to was the language. The language at the end of the day bothered me. For example, it's just not entertaining to me. So, what I did was I sat down and I looked up domain-specific languages. And domain-specific languages are basically reskins. That's what they really are. That you take a programming language and you reskin it. You're not making your own programming language, at least not yet. But you are reskinning a currently existing language to be more aesthetically appealing to what you are doing. There was a guy who did one called, Busanex or something like that, and while his explanation was extremely technical, it was very amusing to see his breakdown of all these things. Just Google this, and just go on YouTube, look these up. This is an entire rabbit hole. You can spend an entire day going down looking up DSLs, okay? I had no idea what the hell a DSL was until I started looking into this. And I was like, okay, what if I wanted to make one where I am playing as a wizard and I'm writing spells? So, what do we need to do that? Well, first we need something to call our functions, and we don't want anything to have the original Python names. So I was like, let's call functions runes, because it's kind of like something you're carving into the program, right? Into the spell. And then for actual spells, those will be stored in a grimoire, and a grimoire is basically a library. So when we call upon a rune to use power, we say invoke rune of so-and-so. And when we want to cast a spell from a grimoire, we're like, cast spell all of this. And then this creates these different features. Instead of print, which doesn't make any sense anymore, it used to make sense and intuitively to people, where we were like, well, we want to print things upon a page on the screen. Now, I've changed it to scribed, because you're scribing words from your spell that will then appear before you. And this is kind of the entire concept of this toy I'm making, this little thing I'm making called Incant. I call this Incant, short for incantation, and as a programming language. And the idea is eventually I want there to be grimoires, which are like these pre-made libraries which have like extremely specific and opinionated uses. So they cover like a very specific domain of use case. Okay, instead of being like a general fit-all tool, we'll have like a grimoire of Windows, which will automatically make a modern Windows GUI just simply available. And then we can add on a tome inside that school, which then that tome would be saying this is the template of what you can make it look like. Does it make sense? And the end goal I was thinking about was, if I really want to take this little pet project of mine to the next level, is I should be able to make a editor that works just like the RPG Maker inventing system. Because don't make no mistake, this is not efficiency, okay? If you want to be efficient, you can write it yourself, or you can write in Python proper, or you can write in any other language. But I kind of want to break away from a lot of these old programming mindsets, these people who are on there, because, I had a thing, okay? And I have limited coding ability, but I'm not afraid to try to throw AI at a problem if I need to, even though it's a bit controversial. But I like to throw it at problems that are not important, like personal things. Like, for example, I have my Miu Mini right here, right? And I wanted to make a image viewer a while back for it. And I went on there and I was like, hey, what do I need to do? And they started listing off these 50, just go download this thing from here. I'm like, great, I download it. I have no idea what the hell to do with a Docker file. And nobody online is telling me, because they're all like, oh yeah, you should figure it out yourself. And I'm like, who in the hell is going to tell me how to use a Docker file? It doesn't make sense. And then all I wanted to do was make a program for this little device here, which, by the way, this is 5 years old now, okay? 4 or 5 years old. They don't even make the Miu Mini Plus anymore. Or this is kind of already an outdated piece of tech. And I just wanted to make a little extra feature for it. Not a big feature, but a little extra feature, And so I chucked it at AI. And the AI failed to make me anything of point. And I went on there and I just kind of asked them, hey, how do you guys feel about us trying to use AI to just slap together a program for it? And I got complete rejection. I got total hate for this. And this kind of told me that these people don't understand. And common people like me, people who just want to use a program and get an end result. People who don't think the way that they think. And I don't know what I feel about them, but I'm just kind of reflecting on this type of cultural backlash I got from that. And that's kind of why I just started this DSL project, just as a fun curiosity. One, because I thought it'd be funny if I learned how to program in a programming language that makes no goddamn sense to anybody who doesn't know it, and confuse people when they open it up and it's telling you to pour forth of the darkness and vice versa. I just thought that was amusing, you know what I mean? But two, I also wanted to make it where it's actually like feature rich enough that eventually it can break away from being a reskin of Python and then just kind of have its own database of features. Does it make sense? You see, if I had funding, this is all I would do. Is I would be working on projects like this day and night, and we would have all kinds of cool, interesting little trinkets hanging around. As is, I worked together with Claude to cobble together a transpiler, and I'm going to mess around with the code base to learn how to program basic text adventures in it, so then I can try to make like a roguelike. And that's kind of like my basic goal for this, is just get it up to the point where I can make an Angband clone, and then I'm done. But yeah, man. And what do you guys think about this type of stuff? What do you think about how the programming community seems to be more of a priesthood instead of really trying to answer what people need? Because we have a problem and we need a solution, and they're not willing to compromise. Alright guys, thank you very much. I hope you have a good night. Next time we'll talk about Chrono Trigger. That's my plan for tomorrow, okay? Hey, I had a guy who commented on it asking for Chrono Trigger, and Chrono Trigger is what we're going to get, okay? So, have a good night.